Well, coming into this, I wanted to be cool, and I was going to say Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas because it's based on one of my favorite books, and I feel like you could do a real good mini-series based on that as a sort of TV show rather than a film. But if I'm being truthful to my inner self, it's gotta be Anaconda, which came out in 1997 and was about, as the title suggests, a great big-ass snake who ate people, including Jon Voight, Ice Cube. Jennifer Lopez was in this movie. The cast for this film was incredibly late 90s, and it was trash. I'm not gonna lie, it was terrible at the time. It is even worse now, but it petrified me. I have not seen it since about, 2000 or something, when I was a wee bairn. But it genuinely terrified me. I still have images and flashbacks of Jon Voight being spewed out the anaconda's mouth onto Jennifer Lopez, and he just kind of gives her a wink and then disintegrates and dies. It's terrible, but on a walk home the other night, I'm gonna relay you a story, Ewan. I was thinking about how we don't have horror movies based on kind of animals anymore. When we do have them, it's sort of, Sharknado, The Meg. They're played as much for laughs as they are horror, and I remember being so little and being scared of snakes and sharks and spiders. Eight-legged.
Get the remake?
Nah, eight-legged freaks are nothing, Ewan. Eight-legged freaks are nothing. But you're right, there were spiders, there were, crocodiles, there were alligators, and yes, we recently had sort of Crawl, which shows that you can do a kind of creature feature based on a, real-life animal, even though, they exaggerated, Jaws in Jaws for the Revenge had the intelligence to get revenge on the people who wronged him. But I want to bring those back in an earnest way, not just in a way that's kind of poking fun at them or doing a Sharknado thing of being, look how dumb this is. Yes, it can still be humorous. Yes, you still can have Jon Voight coming back somehow and getting spat out by a giant anaconda. But also, I want to be scared by these things again. And I feel like if you bring back Anaconda as a big sort of horror movie, give it maybe a $10 million budget, make it R-rated, really go in on the graphic elements of it, but still have, someone funny there to, deliver the quips, have a good time, and then bring back this 90s weird indulgence when it comes to the horror movie sector that just isn't there anymore. And I want it back, Ewan. Give me the movies. Just don't remake any of the sequels, just the original 1997 one.
See, out of all of John Woo's filmography from the 90s, I actually think they've made a good choice in deciding to remake Face Off. And we can talk about, so much of that film's uniqueness coming from Travolta and Cage. But, if they'd gone around and told me, and they're remaking Hard Target, I would have put my foot down and said, no! The success of Hard Target is entirely down to Jean-Claude Van Damme's decision to wear double denim throughout that entire film. And may I remind you of its cultural significance? He has now done that in all the Coors Light adverts since. So there we go. I'm not too happy about Face Off being remade, but whatever. In terms of 90s movies that I think I should be remade, so many of them stand up well enough today that there's no point. But I will say, if you're going to remake a movie, you should do it to tap into a kind of partnership. Think about like your Tango and Cashes kind of being rebrought back. And I thought Thelma and Louise, but with Cate Blanchett and Tessa Thompson would be amazing. That would be absolutely class. I would absolutely love to see, Tessa Thompson and Cate Blanchett in everything all the time. And you know what, remaking Thelma and Louise, maybe, make it just a little bit more explicit. Be great. I'd love it.
That's a good partnership.
Yeah, actually have Cate Blanchett wear that really cool green suit from Oceans. You know the one. Cleary knows the one.
I know the one.
Cleary knows the one.
Right, all remakes are bad, fundamentally, because it's an artistic version, etc., etc. If it's not as good, you just kind of got to accept it. It is what it is, and just leave it, let it go, stop trying to cash in on these things. But when the finished product isn't what it was supposed to be, when the actual finished article is not what we were supposed to get, then, well, that's why director's cuts exist. That's why DVD extras exist. But when you can't do that, when you can't do a director's cut because, you stored the extra footage in a salt mine in Tasmania and it all got eroded and completely lost, then something deserves a remake. And that is why I want them to remake Event Horizon. Because it was a bit of a flop at the time. It was presented as this terrifying, scary, it was the next Alien. It was going to really, really shit you up. But then every time all the really gory, bad stuff happened, it kind of pulls away, it doesn't really commit to it. And we know from loads of interviews that there's loads of stuff they filmed that didn't get put in, more stuff fleshing out the characters, no pun intended, more of the dark stuff, and that bit where they find the video of what happened to the last crew, that is just, we saw about 10% of what they actually filmed of that, and I have here detailed details about precisely what we missed out on. And my God, right? Deleted shots include A female crew member who had her mouth held open by clamps, while a crazed man performs amateur dentistry by drilling screws into her teeth. Another unlucky chap has his legs smashed apart by steel bars and crawls away, leaving parts of them behind, while another crew member has her breasts torn off. The scene also includes more cannibalism and more sex, with adult performers being hired to simulate the intensity of the scene, let's just say. The director realised that they were never ever going to use most of it, but they spent the day filming it all anyway. Basically, we did not see half of what we should have seen in Event Horizon. You know the bit at the end where Sam Neill's got his face all carved up? That was a full body costume, and they only did tight shots of the face to try and get a 17 rating. Give us an R-rated Event Horizon. Give us Paul Anderson's actual vision of it all, and shit me up the way I was meant to be.
Now, my initial answer to this was The Craft, because as much as it is an excellent film and doesn't need remaking, it would work really well in a modern setting. But looking it up, it turns out that it is getting a remake, and that all got confirmed earlier this year, so you can thank me later, basically. Anyway, the other things that would work well from the 90s are loads of horror films would be fantastic remade, because they're grotty, low budget, like they're really gritty and not very well made, which is part of the charm of them, but would work fantastically well with a big budget going a bit crazy. Like Cube would be another one, again, is already getting a remake. So I turned to the world of creature features and big set piece like explosion movies, and when you get into that part of the 90s, which is the gold dust, there's two films that stand out which I think that I loved growing up, which don't hold up well today. Which first one would be Twister, because that is a great movie. It's big, dumb fun. It's schlocky storm chasers going into a massive tornado, hurricane, whatever it's called. I don't know. They go into it, a big twister, surprisingly. They go into that to try and get recordings for environmental stuff, basically. Science. But the main set piece is just that everything's exploding and getting consumed by a big twister. And now the CGI is rubbish in compared to modern standards. So watching that be played out again with even bigger budget, even more craziness, with the whole remake push behind it, would be so good. It'd be such big dumb fun. Like imagine The Rock at like the head of something like this, like Twister, doing Rampage or Skyscraper again, just making it Twister. Like that would be very, very good. And Adam Cleary very rightly pointed out that the whole environmental side of it would stand up a lot better now as well. Like you're looking like shocked that I've like given you credit, but yeah, that the whole climate change being very scary would work well for Twister. But it also, and this entry's going on because I've got lots of thoughts. I also have to shout out Deep Blue Sea. Best film ever made? Maybe. I'm going to put it out there. Best film ever made. More big dumb fun. But think of the shark movie quality we have now. Like Meg, Jason Statham in Deep Blue Sea. I'd see it. Deep Blue Sea 2 was rubbish, so it's their time to go back, take it, make it better, do something new and fantastic with it. It would be good. I would be very down for a Deep Blue Sea remake. As much as I love the original, and it's really dumb, stupid, schlocky, giant megamind sharks coming and ravaging a scientific base in the middle of the ocean. It'd be so good seeing that again now with all of the stuff that they have at their disposal, and Samuel L. Jackson being in it again and getting eaten again. That would be great. That's all I want to see.
Not only does it deserve it, but it would be criminal not to remake it, and that is The Pagemaster. Now, Adam Cleary has never seen this film, so I'm going to tell you all about this film. So, The Pagemaster is all about Macaulay Culkin when he was young and cute before the drugs. Okay. And he is a little kid who is like basically scared of everything. This is maybe going to paraphrase a little bit because I haven't seen it in about 20 years. So he's scared of everything. And he's like on the way home or something, and it's very scary and it's raining. So he like goes into this library, and when he's in the library, he gets lost, and somehow the library turns into he goes into a book basically, and it turns into an animation. So it goes from like live action to animation. And when you're a kid, that was like the coolest thing ever. And you know, I mean, I would watch it again as a adult. But so he meets these three books, and so he meets adventure, he meets fantasy, and he meets horror, and these books are all like amazing. And he goes to each of their worlds, and he's just trying to get out, he's just trying to find the exit. I just remember it's got like this big exit sign, like an emergency exit. So he's trying to get there, and it's just really good because at the end of it, he fights a dragon, and then he comes out of it like a completely different kid, and he's all confident, and he's great. And the Pagemaster's like, I did this because you were a scared little kid, and now you're not. And I just think it would be really good to be remade these days, because you could sort of substitute it, because kids don't read books these days. You could have it as a kid who just spends his whole time on his phone or on his Xbox, and just have it as like some kind of life lesson for kids to get out there and read all these amazing old stories or something like that, and it would be really cool. I think it would be a really good remake. Are you gonna go and watch it now, Cleary?
I am.
He is! Yes! Result!
Unless they remake it, then I'll wait.
If they remake it, you can watch that one, yeah.
Well, this thing, we were talking about this beforehand. Like, it's actually quite hard to think of stuff that A, hasn't already been rebooted horribly, or the ones that I do want to reboot, they're from the 80s. Like, we were talking before, Krull. Krull is the thing that should be remade. If you've not watched Krull, watch Krull. It's mad. Literally, that should be the tagline for it when it just comes out. 2020, watch Krull. Hashtag watch Krull. But the one that I have chosen is actually kind of a spin-off from one of my favourite films ever made, and that is John Carpenter's The Thing, and that is The Faculty, because can you think of a film that isn't The Thing, but yet is also The Thing with high school students, Frodo, and drugs in biro pens?
I would think The Faculty.
That's it. Like, it's the best film because it was funny. It was ahead of its time in terms of the way it told its story. No one was really sort of doing a serious high school like horror style thing at this time. It was kind of parody as well in terms of like taking the piss out of other horror tropes, but yet its beat for beat is literally like The Thing. It's like something comes in and affects the school, or the base, the Antarctic base, if we're getting really, really technical about it. Then it's like something bad happens to one of the people they trust. Can you trust anyone? Ends with a sort of like heroic last stand. It's back to back, so much fun to watch. And it had Josh Hartnett in before he went weird. And it had Elijah Wood in before he went weird. And it had...
Some other people in it.
Yeah, before they went weird.
Yeah.
Do you remember that they went weird?
I remember.
All of those people, but watch Krull.